monopolistic competition. So firstly, we should know the meaning of monopolistic competition. Monopolistic competition is a form of market structure in which a large number of independent firms are supplying products that are slightly differentiated. When firms are competing only through price changes, there are three cases of long-run equilibrium of a typical firm under monopolistic competition. The long-run equilibrium can be seen under three situations: when competition takes place only through the entry of new firms, when competition takes place only through price variations, and when competition arises through price variation and new entry. Monopolistically competitive markets have the following characteristics. There are many producers and many consumers in a given market, and no business has total control over the market price. Consumers perceive that there are non-price differences among the competitors' products. There are few barriers to entry and exit. Producers have a degree of control over price, market power. The long-run characteristics of a monopolistically competitive market are almost the same as in perfect competition, with the exception of monopolistic competition having heterogeneous products, and that monopolistic competition involves a great deal of non-price competition. Its two assumptions are: the demand curve of each individual firm has the same shape, elasticity, and position, distance from the y-axis. That is, we assume the demand curve of all firms to be symmetrical. This assumption implies that market share of every firm is the same and equal to a constant proportion of the total market demand. That is, if total market demand is Q and an individual firm's demand is small q, then small q equals K and Q, where K is constant fraction for all firms. The cost curves, both average and marginal, are symmetrical for each firm. These two assumptions are heroic or unrealistic, but we need to make them logical convenience in order to analyze the long-run equilibrium of a typical firm monopolistic competition. After studying this lesson, you should be able to define monopolistic competition, analyze the features of monopolistic competition, analyze the equilibrium of a firm under monopolistic competition. Now let us discuss the equilibrium in monopolistic market structure. In the short run, a monopolistically competitive firm will maximize its profits or minimize its losses by producing at the point where MC equals MR. In the short run, since the firm has a downward sloping demand curve, it will also have a downward sloping marginal revenue curve. A profit maximizing firm produces where marginal cost MC equals marginal revenue and charges the price determined by demand. This can be understood from the figure where the monopolistic firm earns supernormal profits to equal to PO ABC. However, like a monopoly, a monopolistic competitor is not guaranteed to make a profit in the short run. The firm may make a loss in the short run. Its profitability will depend on the demand. This can be understood by case P. The monopolistic firm incurs short-run losses equal to CA BP1. In the long run, all monopolistically competitive firms earn only normal profit. The action in a monopolistically competitive market occurs when the market moves to the long run. Since other competitors selling a similar good can enter the market, two changes will occur. Firm demand will decrease. Firm demand will become more elastic. As more firms enter the market, the demand for any one firm will decrease, since the firm is now sharing the market with other firms. A decrease in demand implies a leftward shift in the demand curve. Since the entering firms are producing substitutes for the existing firm's goods, the demand for the existing good will become more elastic. An increase in elasticity implies the demand curve is getting flatter. By combining these effects, as a monopolistically competitive market moves from short-run profits to the long run, the firm's demand curve will move to the left and get flatter. Furthermore, the demand curve will continue to move until there are no more firms entering the market. Firms will stop entering the market when profits are zero. This occurs when the demand curve just barely touches, that is tangent to, the ATC curve, as shown in the figure. Once the demand curve is tangent to the ATC curve, the profit maximizing price is equal to the average total cost, and thus profits are zero. In the long run, competition will drive monopolistically competitive markets to make zero profits. The goal of the firm is to try to maintain as much short-run profit as possible by differentiating its product. Eventually, though, in the long run, economic profits will be zero. If a monopolistic competitor is losing money in the short run, the opposite holds true. If the market is not profitable, firms will leave as the market moves towards the long run. When firms leave, there are fewer substitutes, so demand becomes more inelastic and increases since market demand is split up among more firms. The demand curve keeps getting steeper and moving to the right until it is tangent to the ATC curve, where profits become zero and no other firm wants to leave the market. Now let's discuss application of monopolistic competition. A monopolistically competitive firm generally produces less output and charges a higher price than would be the case for a perfectly competitive industry. In particular, the price charged by a monopolistically competitive firm is greater than its marginal cost. The inequality of price and marginal cost violates the key condition for efficiency. Resources are not being used to generate the highest possible level of satisfaction. The reason for this inefficiency is found with market control. Because a monopolistically competitive firm has control over a small slice of the market, it faces a negatively sloped demand curve and price is greater than marginal revenue, which is set equal to marginal cost when maximizing profit. While monopolistic competition is technically inefficient, it tends to be less inefficient than other market structures, especially monopoly. Even though price is greater than marginal revenue and thus marginal cost because the demand curve is relatively elastic, the difference is often relatively small. The closer marginal revenue is to price, the closer a monopolistically competitive firm comes to allocating resources according to the efficiency benchmark established by perfect competition. In the grand scheme of economic problems, the inefficiency created by monopolistic competition seldom warrants much attention, and deservedly so. So now we can better understand how monopolistic market exists in the real world. Now let us check if we have understood the various concepts discussed in this lesson clearly. There is no chance for product differentiation in monopolistic competition. Right or wrong? Wrong. In monopolistic situation, there are few barriers to entry and exit. Right or wrong? Right. In long-run equilibrium through new entry competition, MR equals to MC equals to LRMC. Right or wrong? Right. Price differentiation means differences among competing products. Right or wrong? Wrong. Let's revise the whole concept. Monopolistic competition is a form of market structure in which a large number of independent firms are supplying products that are slightly differentiated. When firms are competing only through price changes, there are three cases of long-run equilibrium of a typical firm under monopolistic competition. The long-run equilibrium can be seen under three situations. When competition takes place only through the entry of new firms, when competition takes place only through price variations, and when competition arises through price variation and new entry. Thank you. Let's revise the whole concept. In theory, perfect competition implies no rivalry among firms. In a perfectly competitive market structure, there is a large number of buyers and sellers of the product, and the product is homogeneous. There is free mobility of factors of production, and the buyers and sellers have perfect knowledge of the market. In the short run, the best level of output of the firm is the one at which the firm maximizes profits or minimizes losses. This is possible at P equals to MR equals to MC. The point at which the firm covers its variable cost is called the closing down point. In long run, the best level of output is one at which price P equals to LMC. At equilibrium, the short run marginal cost is equal to the long run marginal cost, and the short run average cost is equal to the long run average cost.